Are you a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener? Of course you are. If you're in the market to buy or sell a home, call real estate superstar Mike Burgoyne today at 314-753-4060 or email him at mike@strikewithmike.com to earn special rates today.
A proven winner on the hockey rink, Joe Wolf knows what it takes to be the best. That's why he has the best rates in the area and only has rave reviews of his work with Wolf Power Washing. Get that siding back to its original color with Joe. Call him at 314-420-5434. That's 314-420-5434.
Hi guys, this is Erica Weston with
Valley Sports West.
And you're listening to my favorite St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
I'm here for it. I'm here for all the hot takes.
I totally see Hoffman putting up 30, 35 goals
in a 56-game season?
Yeah.
You know, Jeff, you were saying you didn't think he was going to score 20 goals next season.
I still think
that's a possible.
I mean, I will literally be happy to grab a live crow and eat it if Tarasenko comes back and scores 30, 40 goals in the NHL in a season.
With a last name like Bolduc, he's not going to play for us. There's just something about that last name is not going to make the NHL on this team. And for the Blues, I just don't see it happening. It seems like a name that is not conducive to play in the NHL.
Kurt Price is already making his claim that Zach Bolduc will never wear a Blues jersey in a regular season game.
No.
He'll glide to the top of the zone, collect the ball, shoots it on goal, grabs his own rebound, and tucks it home on the short side.
Ricky Plessman made the initial save. I think he's a little upset at his defenders for not getting in there. Ray Matz making the shot, picking it up, and then depositing the rebound. Not a lot Ricky Plessman can do with that. You see him taking the shot, looking for the rebound, the ball's down, pulling it, being patient, putting it by Ricky Plessner. He needs a little help from his defense in a point like that, but Ray Matz all over the ball.
And a happy We Went Blues Day to everyone in Blues Nation. You are listening to Let's Go Blues Radio, the original and longest-running blues hockey podcast. This is episode number 35 of season 13, all-time. We are recording episode 466 all-time. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Call Mike at 314-753-4060 or email him at mike@strikewithmike.com and get started selling your current home or buying a new home today, and by Wolf Power Washing. If you're in the St. Louis area and need the services of a professional power washer, Joe Wolf is your guy. Call him at 314-420-5434 and get the best prices in the area. On today's show, I'm joined by Jake Simperman, the director of Pro Beach Hockey, Sun, Surf, and Slapshots. That is a new documentary that will be hitting some select theaters, I think, for openings, but mostly probably coming to a streaming service near you sometime this year in 2024. For those who don't know what Pro Beach Hockey was, it was in the late 1990s, and it was over at Huntington Beach, California. And you might be wondering why a St. Louis podcast is covering this. If it was in Huntington Beach, well, it was nationally broadcast nationally broadcast all over across America and Canada. And you'll hear me talk about it with Jake, but it had an impact on me as a young hockey player, which is a big reason why I think I play roller hockey today. So, very excited for this. When I saw is an Instagram that I originally caught this on, and I thought, man, I can't wait. And I thought, man, that'd be a really good guest. And so very excited to have Jake on and talk about Pro Beach Hockey, which, again, resonated very well with me. But at the top of the show, we'll get to that a little bit later. We should mention this is being recorded and broadcast on We Went Blues Day. So it is June 12th, 2024. Can you believe it's been 5 years since the Blues lifted Lord Stanley's chalice? I've said it a million times. My wife hates when I say it, but it's true. Best day of my life. Sorry, son. Sorry, marriage. Sorry, everything else that has happened to me in my life. Just being a lifelong Blues fan, and just finally it happened. I mean, if you listen to this show, we did have a show the next day, and you can just tell Kurt, Bill, and I are just elated. We can't even describe how we feel and just how exciting it was to witness it finally. So happy We Went Blues Day, everyone. Even if you're listening to this after We Went Blues Day, still an important day, milestone day. And I know some people say it's silly that we kind of celebrate this day, but whatever. I think it's worth celebrating. Your first Stanley Cup on a franchise that's been around longer than 50 years. I think when Toronto wins another one, they'll have a day like this, even though they've won them before. I think a city like Winnipeg, if they were to ever win a cup, they would do the same thing. So I think it's completely worth it and worth the celebration. It was a big day in St. Louis. So moving on, we had another kind of big moment for St. Louisan. Want to congratulate our friend, Winning Unlimited, or you might know him as Adam Gold. He made a selection at the 2024 PWHL draft, which is incredible. I mean, for those who don't know, Adam, and I'm working on getting Adam on the show. We've had him on before, but I'd love to get him on again. He developed the Gold Plan. I'm not going to run through the whole thing because we've done that before, so our regular listeners are probably used to hearing it. But it's a very good plan for basically encouraging competitiveness after being out of the playoffs, and it basically encourages those to win after you're eliminated mathematically, because then you win it, you get the first overall pick as opposed to tanking. So Adam developed this. He's had it in his back pocket for years and years. He's talked to professional leagues about it. Finally, the PWHL adopted it. This was the first time we've actually seen it in action. And so they wanted Adam to come up to the draft in Minnesota and make one of the picks. So he did that. He made the 25th pick in the draft, and it was for the New York PWHL team. And we have a clip. So here's Adam making that really awesome pick for New York. Congratulations, Adam. Very awesome.
We understand that the pick is ready to go for PWHL New York, and we're going to go to the creator of what is called the Gold Plan, Adam Gold, to announce the first pick here in round number 5.
With the 25th pick in the draft, PWHL New York selects El Harchi.
Another player from the college ranks back to the forward position, El Harchi out of Yale. 23 years old, a Detroit, Michigan native, led the Bulldogs in scoring each of the last 3 seasons.
And she's from the United States, but has played overseas as well, most recently playing in the EWHL. So you talk about some of that international talent. That includes players, of course, who were born in the States, but have found ways to play hockey overseas. She'll now come back here into New York to join their team. And we talk about all the picks they've added to their roster here tonight, Clay. It's been impressive what New York has done. Another fantastic pick here, 168 points in her collegiate career at Yale University.
Yeah, she's been described as a late bloomer, Kenzie. It sounds like her career has no limit right now.
And we do have some very quick Blues news to get to. Again, it's off season. Nothing really moving and shaking yet. That will happen in a couple weeks, but hopefully, but we'll see. Right now, the Blues, they did announce they did sign forward Matthias Laferriere and goaltender Colton Ellis to 1-year, 2-way contracts. Laferriere, 1-year, 2-way at $775,000 at the NHL level, $100,000 at the AHL level. He is 23. He appeared in 68 regular season games with the Blues AHL affiliate, the Springfield Thunderbirds, last season, posting 25 points, 7 goals, and 18 assists, and 20 penalty minutes. LaFerriere was originally drafted by the Blues in the 6th round, 169th overall of the 2018 NHL draft. As far as Ellis goes, he will also get $775K at the NHL level, $85,000 at the AHL level. He is also 23, and he split last season between the ECHL's Orlando Solar Bears and the Blues' AHL affiliate, the Springfield Thunderbirds. In Springfield, he posted a 7-9-0 record along with a .924 save percentage that ranked 5th amongst AHL goaltenders with at least 15 appearances. So a save percentage at .924, but a 7-9-0 record. Listen, I know stats don't tell the whole game, but that tells me he did his job and his team wasn't scoring for him. He could probably have a nice long conversation with Miles Michaelis about that. With the for those of you who are also Cardinals fans, Ellis was originally drafted by the Blues in the 3rd round, 93rd overall of the 2019 NHL draft. So again, depth moves. And if you listened to, which if you haven't, I highly recommend you do. We had Vanessa Graff, friend of the show, on to open the off season. She was on would have been, I guess, mid to late April. She gave some insight into Colton Ellis. She thinks that he's on the rise again, that he was kind of on his way out with the organization, but this past season, he put up some great numbers and played well for both the CHL and AHL. So she thinks that he's a guy considered, possible. I don't want to say NHL caliber, but at least an AHL starter. Getting spot starts in the NHL as you need. So at the very least, that could be his ceiling, maybe even higher. Who knows? But looks like Colton Ellis is back, and they're kind of giving him that 1 year, saying, let's see if you can do it again. If you can, maybe we'll lock you down for 2 or 3 years. And then as far as LaFerriere goes, I mean, solid numbers for a guy who played mostly, I think, 2nd to 3rd line minutes. He's a guy that's going to grind a little. And from what I've heard and seen of his game, he's not an elite scorer, but he's a good depth piece that maybe if you have a bottom 6 injury, maybe that's a guy you look to possibly come in and provide a spark or a charge, like a Nathan Walker, who could step in and make a difference. So, although Nathan Walker's got quite the scoring hands too, when you look at his AHL numbers. But LaFerriere, a guy that I think is just a good depth piece to have for your AHL roster. So when we get back from break, you are going to hear from Jake Sipperman. Very excited to share this interview with everybody. I hope some of you listening were as touched by Pro Beach Hockey as I was. Again, just such a major part. It's only 3 seasons, but such a major part of my summer childhood. So many memories just sitting and watching that and just thinking it was the coolest thing in the world. So first, you're going to hear from our excellent sponsors, and after that, you will hear from me and Jake. You are listening to Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
As a hockey player, Mike Burgoyne knows a thing or two about making the perfect play. And when it comes to real estate, he's always ready to score the winning goal for his clients. If you're a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues Radio listener looking to score the home of your dreams, you'll receive special rates with Mike. Go ahead, shoot some questions his way, and he'll have the answer quicker than Curtis Joseph on a breakaway.
Curtis Joseph got the pedal down!
Any barriers? Mike will mow them down like Chris Pronger in front of the net. He'll score you your dream home or sell your existing home faster than a Brett Hall one-timer.
Put past the Hall. He shoots. He scores!
See Burgoyne's real estate prowess in action today by emailing him at mike@strikewithmike.com or by calling 314-753-4060. That email again is mike@strikewithmike.com, and that phone number is 314-753-4060. Getting Mike Burgoyne on your team will be the boost your power play needs.
Well, honey, I just priced the power washing for the house, and I think we should just move and condemn this place. It'll be cheaper.
Did you try Wolf Power Washing?
Who?
Oh, I just saw this guy win the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament and thought he was attractive, so I looked him up on social media, and it turns out he's the owner and proprietor of Wolf Power Washing. He claims he has the best prices in town.
But does he use non-flammable, non-toxic chemicals that are safe for Wolfie and our son, little Magnus?
Yes, he ensures there'll be no residue left behind, and he doesn't use any volatile vapors.
Well, this fella sounds like a dream. I just wish I knew how to contact him.
Oh, I know how. You can reach him at 314-420-5434.
314-420-5434, and his name is Joe Wolf of Wolf Power Washing?
That's right.
But how did you know his number so quickly?
I'll never tell.
Wait, what?
That's Wolf Power Washing at 314-420-5434. And make sure to tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
And we are back, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Jake Simperman. And why is he important? Why do hockey fans want to know this name? He is the he's making the documentary called Pro Beach Hockey, Sun, Surf, and Slap Shots. You are the director, and you've got some pretty big names that are behind you on this, which we'll get to in a minute. But Jake, thank you very much for coming on, and I'll go ahead and say it. Thank you for providing this documentary that I know so many hockey fans are looking forward to.
Well, I really appreciate being here, and I also appreciate learning that there's an audience for this, not only in California, but in places like St. Louis. That's super encouraging to me, and happy to talk more about it.
Yeah. So again, for those, if you don't know, if you're young, and we've got some young listeners that probably weren't even born when Pro Beach Hockey was a thing, played outdoors, Huntington, California, literally right on the beach, late 90s. I believe it was 98 to 2000. So it was only 3 years, but it was covered on ESPN. And I'm going to guess you're about my age, so clearly you are not involved in the original Pro Beach Hockey. What got you involved in making the documentary?
Yeah, so I did not play, but I was one of these kids at the time living with my parents in Southern California, and I was one of these kids who really got into both ice and roller hockey, but I attended some of these games with my father, and I was just always so confused by the ramps and the cheerleaders and all of these elements that didn't seem to quite fit with the traditional view of hockey. And, so I went to these games, and I sort of grew up, in that roller hockey bubble in Southern California. And years later, we moved to Buffalo, New York, and I mainly played ice hockey, but I had, some roots in roller. And, fast forward 25 years after the league ended, and, I just couldn't shake this idea of this league and why no one had told a story about it. So, at the time during COVID, I was working for Major League Baseball as a producer and found myself with a lot of extra time to develop and research this story. And that's kind of where it came from. Was I had these memories of this league, and there wasn't much out there about it. So felt like my responsibility to investigate.
That it's so funny to hear you say that, because I remember back in 2020 when I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, there's one good thing that's going to come from this. You are going to get people who are literally going to be sitting on their hands with nothing to do, and they're going to be thinking about what cool thing has not been created that I can create from this. And we're starting to see fruits of the labor now. And right now, I'm not saying that a Pro Beach Hockey documentary is going to make the world just explode, but it's very exciting for people like me. And so we're starting to see the fruits of the labor of people wanting to get stuff done during the COVID crisis.
Yeah. And I think it was a unique time too, because so many people were by their phones and just sort of almost longing for connection. So, I was able to have these conversations and sort of create this roadmap and web of players and people behind the scenes. And I don't know that it would have been possible in a different time. I certainly wouldn't have been having, 40-minute conversations with over 50 different players, so it just, the timing in that regard worked out well. And obviously the timing was difficult for a lot of reasons. And it took us a long time to be able to film because of COVID, but it really allowed us to get to know the story, get to know the subjects, and kind of build a roadmap because everyone was happy to talk about it.
So with talking with these players, and again, for those that maybe haven't seen Pro Beach Hockey, there's certainly, I know you've got an Instagram that's got a lot of great clips from it. But also I know you can find clips on YouTube, and if you're interested, definitely look it up and obviously check out the documentary when it comes out. But for you talking to these players about this documentary and getting this off the ground, how do those players view Pro Beach Hockey? Because clearly a lot of these guys had a couple guys played in the NHL, a couple guys were RHI, Roller Hockey International players. So when they talk about that compared to the other hockey they played, like, what does it rank pretty high for them, or was it just kind of a weird, like, this is a strange gimmick that we did for 3 years?
I think the general consensus is that it was the best 3 summers of their lives. I mean, it is. I've had guys compare it to, not above, but up there with their marriages, or I mean, wow. I just think the culmination of playing hockey outside on live TV in front of fans and getting paid. I mean, it's just such a unique experience to be a part of, and everyone I talked to was incredibly grateful and incredibly honored to be a part of it, even 25 years later. And you got to remember, there was only, I think there was 8 players aside, so plus a goalie, and there were 6 teams. So there wasn't a lot of these spots available. So if you were lucky enough to get one of these for the summers of 98, 99, or 2000, it was rare company, and they were treated really well. And as you'll learn in the documentary, I think they had a lot of fun off the court in addition.
Yeah. So, and I've heard some players, past players, just in random interviews or, maybe in Sports Illustrated or whatever, talk about very briefly about their time with Pro Beach Hockey. And I don't remember who it was, but I remember one stuck out that they said that it wasn't about being the best at roller hockey. It was also about having a good personality. And I think if you go back and watch clips, and clearly when you watch the documentary, you'll see that a lot of these guys, they weren't your typical, oh yeah, it's got to get pucks deep, 110%. These guys were characters. They were funny people. They were interesting. They, obviously there's a couple names we could mention here, but you had a rock and roll goaltender who was pretty damn good in his own right. I mean, it's impressive to think about what went into building this league, because it wasn't just about finding the best talent available.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think amongst all the fascinating things about this league, I think that really stands out to me, was the construction of the rosters. Yeah, we're going to take maybe 20 elite roller hockey players. Okay, then we're going to take, maybe another 20 kind of NHL, AHL bubble guys who, need a summer job. And then the rest of the guys are going to be sort of, actors and surfers and musicians. And so it was just this really kind of genius way to put together a roster that would have people who are not necessarily interested in hockey to capture their attention. And I thought it was genius, and you just don't see that. I think today, if you organize a roller hockey league and you took the 60 best roller hockey guys in the country, I mean, respectfully, that's great, but does it have the same entertainment value? Certainly not. So I always loved that they really brought in such a diverse cast of players, and don't get me wrong, most of them could play at a pretty high level, but there was value in being an entertainer.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned Rick Plester was the goaltender. I mentioned the heavy metal goaltender. Literally would play his guitar for the national anthem before games in goalie gear. That's always something that stood out to me. And I know clearly you're much closer to this because you just made a documentary. But going into it, what's some of the memories you had of watching this as a kid? You mentioned being there in person, but also watching it on TV.
I mean, it was so hazy. I mean, I was like 8 or 9 years old when it started. And I just, I got to go to these games and be involved in the roller community. So actually a few players sort of, were family friends. So we're sort of in that bubble. And, you know, when it was on TV, it was always on at weird hours. So like I'd be kind of lucky to catch a game because I think, you know, they would either play kind of right after school or they'd play at like 2 a.m. So, you know, I just remember that era of ESPN where they were programming all these alternative sports and, you know, whether it was the outdoor games or the World's Strongest Man. And then you had Pro Beach Hockey kind of sandwiched in the middle. But, you know, I just remembered there was a whole entertainment package and that, you know, that sort of vague memory is what triggered this whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think I told you in the email that I sent you when I asked you to come on, like for me, it was, they used to show replays in the middle of the day. So literally my mornings, those 3 summers, and this is very true. You can ask my mom. I would wake up at about 8 a.m. I'd go out and shoot pucks in the driveway hours till about 10:30. And then sometimes I'd jump in the pool, but typically I'd go right inside, take a quick shower, catch the Pro Beach Hockey game that started at noon or 1 o'clock, whatever time they started airing it. And it was just, that was my summer days. I loved it. There was nothing like it. And I know I'm not the only one. I still play roller hockey to this day, and I still talk to players that are like, man, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a Pro Beach Hockey thing now? And I'm like, yes, with the better, you know, with HD cameras and with, you know, just all the other things you can do now with technology to cover the game, and just usher in this whole new era of young roller hockey players. Because I'll tell you, I think one of the biggest reasons I switched from ice to roller is because of watching Pro Beach Hockey and just falling in love with it. And I know you still play too, so I'm sure it had a huge impact on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that this, and it just brings a smile to my face just thinking, you know, how much this impacted you growing up because, you know, when we're bringing this idea to people, it's hard to express to them how much and how many people watched this league because it seems like such a foreign concept, but I'm just, you know, thrilled to hear that you were one of these kids as well. And again, I think what's even more impressive is that it wasn't just a regional thing. Like it was really big in California for obvious reasons, but it's cool to hear that even in St. Louis or, you know, in Canada, it had a ripple effect. And, you know, we're hoping to kind of capture that audience and really just bring back the nostalgia factor.
Yeah, no. And, I'll tell you again, I just, all the roller hockey players I play with, I told them I played last night and I told them, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm having a guy who's doing the Pro Beach Hockey documentary on. And they're like, oh, we're actually going to listen to your show for once. And I'm like, oh, thanks, friends. I appreciate that. So, Jake, thank you for getting my friends to finally listen.
Well, they should be listening every week, but I'm glad to have you, right?
Exactly. No, so I wanted to ask you, too, because, again, you're not the only brains behind this. Clearly, you know, you're very involved, but you've got some other great people that are helping you with this project. 2 names that come to mind, Max McCormick and Chris Dreger, both in the Seattle Kraken organization. They are signed on as producers. I'm just wondering, what is their role in making of this? And were they as fascinated with Pro Beach Hockey growing up as you and I were?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just to kind of rewind and add some context. So I've known Max for, I guess over a decade now. We went to college together. He played on the varsity hockey team, obviously. I played on the club hockey team, if that wasn't obvious as well. But we spent a lot of time together in college. We actually met in a television critique in English class, which is pretty interesting in retrospect. Yeah. Stayed in touch through the years. And I think when you look at professional hockey players, I think there's some guys that are really, really focused on their on-ice stuff. I mean, everyone's focused on their on-ice stuff, but a lot of them are also, you know, entrepreneurs and interested in developing their life outside the ice. And Max is certainly one of the hardest working people I've ever met, but he wants to do more outside of hockey. And I just brought him this idea and just to kind of tell him what I was up to. And he was like, how can I help? How can I be involved? And that's what a producer does, is they see obstacles and they find solutions. It's sort of just a vague way of, you know, producer is just just a problem solver. Like, and so for Max, and he's able to open doors through his connections at the NHLPA. He introduced me to Chris Drieger, who is the Kraken's goalie. And they've just been able to really, really kind of run with this and introduce us to people, get us into meetings, build our following. And they're just, really, really invested in this project and the outcome and really the whole Pro Beach Hockey brand. But to answer your question, I don't think that either of them knew about the league, and they were super fascinated with it. I showed them a very early trailer. I mean, very raw. I probably had only done 1 or 2 interviews, and that was enough to really get them hooked. And they've been, fantastic partners since. And, now they're sort of I think they're sort of the conduit between the NHL and the Pro Beach Hockey world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, as I was asking the question, I thought, wait a minute, they probably couldn't have watched it because they're younger than us. So, they're probably late 20s at this point. Well, I guess Max is about your age.
Max is a year younger than me because he played. Well, I think, yeah, he's a year younger, but it's just confusing because they play 1 year juniors before college. But
right,
yeah, I mean, he would have been a little younger, but he wasn't familiar with the league. And I mean, growing up in Wisconsin, he didn't play a ton of roller, but it captured his attention, and I think they saw the big picture.
Yep, yeah, and I'll tell you, we've got a lot of St. Louis kids that are playing in the NHL now that played roller. The Kachucks, Pat Maroon. Mike McKenna, who had a long stint in the NHL. These guys, they come from St. Louis. They played roller. They got roller background. So when I saw that these guys were involved, I'm like, man, I wonder if they grew up playing roller like a lot of these St. Louis kids did.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would just mess around on wheels a little bit and during the summer and cruise. But I think roller hockey is very regional. I mean, St. Louis, I feel like, is, in terms of outside of California, probably one of the better roller hockey communities that I know of, at least.
Yep.
But that being said, you can see the appeal of playing roller hockey anywhere.
Yep. Oh yeah, and that's what I always tell people. People who've never played roller hockey before, maybe played ice and maybe haven't played at all, is I'm like, throw the rules out the window. You don't have offside. You don't have icing. It's just, it's kind of mayhem, but that's why it's a smaller rink and it's 4-on-4. And so I tell people, it's fun. It's just a different view. We used to have a team out here called the St. Louis Vipers that played professional roller hockey. And it was always in the summer. And it was just kind of this nice alternative. The Blues season's over. Can't get Cardinals tickets because it's a hot ticket in town. Check out the Vipers game. And, and a lot of Vipers players still live in the area and talk about their glory days. But again, talking about Pro Beach Hockey, I mean, there were so many, again, you talk about the difference between roller and ice. The difference between roller and Pro Beach Hockey was interesting because there was, for instance, one of the craziest ones for me is the 2-point goals. You could score from this arc that was far out enough. If you took a shot, it was a 2-point goal. So when you look at the crazy different rules of Pro Beach Hockey, what's the one that maybe either you forgot about when you started doing the documentary, or maybe you were like, oh yeah, this was the coolest rule they had?
I mean, I think I remembered the 2-point goals because you can see the arc. It's right on the court. I didn't remember how they dealt with penalties. Which is basically just like a free throw in basketball. They would just put the ball on the line and then it was, bombs away. That was really fascinating to me. I think, again, going back to just sort of creating an entirely new sport, I think all of these things attracted a different audience. And the founder, Dave McLean, he didn't have a hockey background. So it was a blank slate. He knew that rollerblading was getting very popular, but he didn't care about things like offsides or It just didn't matter to him. And I think that is incredibly refreshing when you're trying to grow and develop a sport. I think, I would say 99% of the reaction to this is usually positive, and even you can laugh at it. I think that's great too. It is funny. But once in a while you'll hear people who are like gatekeeping roller hockey, and I think it's hilarious. I think it's like, who are you to say that roller hockey can only have 1-point goals or that there shouldn't be ramps? It's like, yeah. I think that's a very small way of thinking, and it's a very, and it is the minority of people. But when Pro Beach started, there were a lot of people that were critical of it because of these gimmicky rules. But they presented a totally different element and package to the game that, look, we're still talking about this today, and that's why.
Yeah, you mentioned McLean being the not a hockey guy, and I think that fresh perspective, because he was a wrestling guy, a concert promoter. So he just, to get this fresh perspective, well, what can we do? We're going to be doing this on the beach, hockey on the beach. That's crazy enough. Let's make it more crazy. And I think that is what made it so interesting and so fun, and not just the teams and the characters that were on the rink, but just all the crazy stuff that was added into the rules that just made it such a fun and interesting sport.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think, and I always, I get a kick out of the ramps too. I mean, who doesn't? But, they may or may not have worked exactly as David intended them to, but the fact that we're still talking about them, that's all that matters. To me, that's why people remember this.
Yeah.
You can say what you will, but we're still talking about it because these things are so memorable. And, it took the players by surprise, and eventually they adopted these rules and they embraced them. It certainly wasn't without pushback, but David was really onto something here. And, again, he's such I like to call him like a P.T. Barnum kind of character, like a Bill Veeck. And he doesn't follow the rules, and I really admire that about him.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And yeah, let's talk about the ramps real quick, because I remember reading something. It was probably only about 5-6 years ago where, and I didn't remember this as a kid, but apparently in the first season, a lot of the players kind of refused to go behind the net. Like they were like, I'm uncomfortable doing that. But then I guess, I don't know who it was, the league or teams or whoever was like, start using that back ramp because it's really cool. And by the third season, I mean, there was plays developing with guys shooting off from behind that ramp and coming in front and scoring a nice goal. Like, think about it. It's just math. You're going down this crazy ramp and you just build this garner of speed that can create crazy hits, crazy goals, crazy plays, crashes into the net, whatever. Just an interesting thing that developed from Pro Beach Hockey.
Yeah, and I'm impressed that you did that much deep dive on the ramps, because you kind of nailed it. I mean, there was a lot of trepidation and just outright fear, I think, of going up those ramps. But what Dave did, was he made it a priority, and moving into later seasons, like, you had to use the ramps, and there was rules that said you needed to use them. And, that just was part of the entertainment value, I think.
Well, and you think about, how many times do we see it? I remember the San Jose Sharks were huge on using the back boards. They would, somebody like, trying to blank on who the defense, Dan Boyle. Dan Boyle would like take a shot, purposely miss the net. It'd pop in front. Joe Thornton would either be there to put it in or slide it across to Marlowe, who'd put it in. And it was a design play. So you think about, with a curved ramp behind the net, the crazy types of plays you can create with using that with the ball. And that's a whole other thing. They use a ball, not a puck, and being able to, the way that it would roll off those backboards would create havoc for the defensive team.
Yeah. I mean, we're deep in this conversation and haven't even talked about that they used a ball.
Yeah, that in itself. I mean, because again, like I remember being a kid, and I'm sure you did the same. Go out with your buddies. Oh, get one of these hard orange balls and play. But you never think about doing it like actually for points and players getting paid. And yeah, they used a ball to play hockey. And I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020, but seeing as how the ball was able to roll and the movement that it created because of the ramps too, I think that was clearly the right call to go with the ball.
Yeah, and I think that actually really stemmed from, ball is what we, to this day, and people around the country use to play in the streets, in parking lots, in blacktop, so it was just an extension of that. It was channeling what they were doing on the grassroots level. And it certainly allowed for a lot of creative plays and things you certainly wouldn't see with a puck.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll say too, I mean, just, you mentioned going to the grassroots level. It was, for me, it was so exciting because it was kind of like you felt like, yes, this is professional and yes, this is televised good hockey, but it almost felt pickup like in a pickup game because you didn't have face-offs except for the opening one. You mentioned the penalties, the crazy free throw type penalties that would cause, and they let a lot of hitting go, which, if you watch a lot of roller hockey, there's not a whole lot of contact, but back in Pro Beach hockey, there was a fair amount back then.
Yeah. And, certainly not to critique the modern roller hockey game, but I think that having the physical element to Pro Beach really helped bring in viewers. And like you said, a lot of these elements were pulled from pickup games, and they wanted it to feel like that. They wanted it to feel like it was inspired by the hockey that was being played on blacktops and parking lots around the country.
So I want to ask you, because you said earlier that you attended these games, something obviously I could not do living in St. Louis. What was it like? What was the atmosphere like? And I know you were a young child, but what was it like attending?
Well, it sticks with you because I think that's, again, another fantastic thing that they did was they created it. It was free, first of all, and they created an entire entertainment spectacle. So you had live music. You had a lot of vendors would come in and you could try skates, you could try sticks. It was sort of an interactive experience. And as a kid, there's giveaways. As a kid, like, it's an all-encompassing event. And, I would compare it to, something kind of like the X Games or, a small music festival where, it's just kind of pandemonium and sensory overload, but it's all centered around this game on the beach. And they did just an amazing job of bringing in sponsors and creating like a cohesive event. And I think that was really cool. And it's something it's a model that David's really good at. It's getting sponsorships, creating an atmosphere. And that's probably another one of my favorite things about the league was just, it just attracted people because you hear the music on the beach and you're gonna follow that.
Yep. So I'll say that as a young man at this time when this was out, one of my first real crushes came from Pro Beach hockey, Tiffany Richardson. I wanted to ask you: is she involved at all in this documentary, or has anyone heard from Tiffany?
Well, first of all, I don't think you were alone. We did our best to get a hold of Tiffany. She's doing great. She lives in Florida now. She's not in the film herself as an interview, but obviously we talk about her. We mention how much of an impact she had, and she was really great at I think at growing the sport, and she brought just a really fun element to the presentation. So unfortunately we didn't get to interview Tiffany, but I hope she enjoys the documentary. She's a huge part of this.
Yeah. Oh, agree. I mean, she, again, I mentioned that, but also I was a young aspiring journalist, and I thought she really has fun doing, like, you can sense when some of these people have fun doing what they were doing. And I felt like she was one of those people that kind of encompassed the whole idea of pro beach hockey. And let's have fun. This is hockey on the beach with ramps and a ball. Let's have fun with this.
Yeah, she was great, super great for TV, and I did not expect to be answering a Tiffany Richardson question today, but I'm so glad you asked.
There you go. All right, yeah. Where else are you going to get that other than Let's Go Blues Radio? No, it's so. I mean, this is obviously very exciting, and there's a lot that's going to go into this. We haven't even scratched the surface of what you're talking about in this documentary. So I want to ask you anything that about, when does this come out? When can people in St. Louis expect to see it? Where's the development at in that?
Yeah, great question. So the documentary is finished, and at this point, it's just a matter of finding the right kind of release strategy partner and potential, streaming platform for distribution. So we're having some of those conversations while also planning some events, doing some screenings locally for, people involved in the roller hockey community, really just trying to build awareness, build an audience, and prove that, there's a lot of demand for this. So I don't have a firm date for you yet. I would love to, but the best way you can kind of be informed about that is, like, you can follow us on social media, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and I'm going to be transparent about updates and trying to bring this to a wider audience. And, we feel like it's going to happen this summer or early fall. So stay tuned. And, we're going to do what it takes to, to bring this to a larger market. And it helps having Max and Chris kind of behind me to continue, motivating and getting this out to a larger audience.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention Jeannie Buss, former owner of the LA Blades, Los Angeles Blades, from 93 to 97. They were one of Roller Hockey International's most successful franchises. She's involved, now the governor and owner of the Lakers as well. So clearly still involved in the sports world. So, yeah, you've got a lot of strong backers, I guess, for this entire project.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a great team, and Jeannie was involved at the roots of roller hockey, and a lot of people don't know that. So this is an opportunity to sort of share her side of the story, and she really helped grow the sport. So yeah, we've got a great team here, and she's such a great leader and role model, and I'm just thrilled that she wanted to be a part of this.
So I have to ask, of the 6 teams, did you have a favorite? And if you can't answer that, favorite jersey or logo from the 6 teams?
So I don't recall having a favorite, but obviously now, after being so ingrained in this, I think you have to align yourself with the team that best fits your personality. So I don't know that it's the best logo, but I think I would go with heavy metal. I really, I love Rick Plester. He's an amazing guy. I just love, they were probably self-proclaimed the hardest partying team in the league. So I think I would align with them, but I think that's the beautiful thing about Pro Beach is that this wasn't a regional thing. You could identify with the Dog Pack or with the Gargoyles or whatever, and take a lot of pride in that. So I'm glad you asked that question, but I'd like to know what team attracted you.
I mean, I do like the Heavy Metals logo. I think that as a kid, if I'm going to pick a team, it probably just would have been what is closest you could have to a 3-season dynasty was the Web Warriors. They won 2 of the 3 championships. I do remember always loving them, and it's such a 90s logo, right? Like, this is like our internet team, and it was just such a 90s look. So I did love that one. But I will say, I think my favorite jersey and logo might have been the Express. I thought they looked pretty slick.
Yeah, the Express we've noticed the Express kind of get left behind and forgotten. So I'm sure that all the handful of diehard Express fans will appreciate that. Yeah. I think the best logo is probably the salsa. Those jerseys are hot. And,
right.
The Web Warriors cracks me up. I mean, it's of course it's the team with the worst name that wins 2 out of 3 seasons. But, that's all great. It's a part of the documentary, and I could have spent, we could have spent an hour just talking about these team names, but it's definitely, I think it's one of my favorite parts is trying to understand the rationale behind, naming a team
right.
Salsa.
Salsa, that, correct me if I'm wrong, that was Chris Chelios' brother was on that team, right, Steve?
Yeah, you might be the 3rd or 4th most knowledgeable Pro Beach person at this point, which
I'm telling you, I was quite the nerd with that. I loved that show, or loved that game, loved that sport. It was great.
Yeah, so Steve Chelios played for Team Salsa, yes.
All right. Awesome. So again, well, I want to also, you mentioned it earlier, how to keep tabs on this. Clearly, here at Let's Go Blues Radio, for our listeners, we will keep you updated as well, but I recommend also going over to probeachhockey.net, which is where you can sign up for the newsletter at the bottom. And then there's just some more information about this, the teams. There's merch you can buy. So make sure you check that out. Social media, anything else that you want to add that people should definitely check out?
No, you nailed it, Jeff. If it's your cup of tea, we got some new hats and stuff coming in the next couple weeks.
Yes.
You can represent proudly, and we appreciate your support. Because, I think it's going to take a big movement if we really want to bring the vision of Pro Beach hockey back, bring a league back. That's a different conversation, but I think it starts with getting people, interested in the film and, interested in the possibility of reviving this. And, certainly, if anything I've learned is that there's a lot of people like you who really care about this. So I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, like I said, for me, it was such a player in me getting involved in roller hockey and loving it. I mean, for me, it was, my parents, I'll admit, they did ask me, hey, roller hockey's a little cheaper. Would you mind playing in that for a little while? Sure, no problem. And I think my love for it continued because it was right around this time, about 98, 99, I started playing roller. And I just, again, I would go out, shoot pucks, watch Pro Beach hockey, then I'd go play hockey that night. And it was just the big part of my childhood, even though it was only 3 years. And so when I saw this, actually a friend of mine that I play hockey with turned me on to your Instagram, which is how I found you. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is fantastic. So again, I do recommend people check out your Instagram because you do have a bunch of old clips that are showing up on there, which is awesome. And then I also want to ask you, Jake, just because, you're obviously a creative person. You've done some work in the past for Major League Baseball, you mentioned. I also saw you've done some work for Bleacher Report. Is there anything else on your horizon that we can be looking out for?
Oh, gosh. That's such a great question, and I really appreciate that. I mean, I think, for me, it's trying to find more of these sort of underserved, underappreciated stories in sports. And, whether that's in hockey or baseball or, adventure sports, there's definitely going to be more coming down the pipeline. I think, one thing I've learned about in this process is just trying to find a way that makes it sustainable and, efficient so that we can continue to do these projects because, making documentaries is a challenge and it's not only is it time consuming, but a lot of financial resources go into it. So we have a lot of really great ideas that Max and Chris and I are working on. And I think it's just a matter of finding the right partner.
Well, there you go. Very cool. Jake Simperman, again, thank you very much for joining us. Again, the name of the documentary, Pro Beach Hockey, Sun, Surf, and Slapshots. ProBeachHockey.net is where you can check out that information. Also sign up for the newsletter. And again, as I said, you will also be getting updates from Let's Go Blues Radio if you continue to listen to us. Thank you very much for joining us, Jake. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. I'm so happy that this is, resonates with you, and I hope others in St. Louis feel the same way, but let's keep in touch.
Definitely. Well, again, thanks to Jake Simperman. Again, you can check that out at probeachhockey.net. Again, sign up for the newsletter. I mean, if you're at all interested in this, at the very least, sign up for the newsletter, show your interest, and let them know that there's somebody in St. Louis other than me who is very excited about this. I know there is. As I said, my hockey teammates, I've talked to a bunch of them, and they are very excited because this was something we all loved when it was on the air, and were bummed when ESPN took it off after 3 seasons. As far as next week goes, I am working on a couple different things, mostly PWHL related. Adam Gold, I'm working on getting him. I'd love to get him on. He's, obviously got some great insight into the Gold plan. Obviously, it's his plan. But the PWHL in general, how it could impact the NHL if they were to adopt this system. I think that could be a very, very fun conversation to have with Adam. And I'm also working on getting our friend on, Amanda Levier, who is a champion. Again, if you have not heard, her team, the Minnesota team for the PWHL, they did take the championship. So would love to talk to her about the first season of the PWHL, how it went from her eyes, and maybe the future of what Amanda Levier is looking for in her professional career. So that'll do it. And then also I'll add actually real quick, the week after that is we're getting into draft talk, and we're getting into free agency. So some of the most exciting summer stuff is coming up. So depending on what the Blues do, we will probably have a couple live shows again coming up in the next couple weeks. So just stay tuned to us on social media. We'll announce when that happens. And looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting some real newsworthy content shows out. As fun as these are, I love doing these interviews. It is always fun having actual hockey news to talk about, and hopefully we'll see some of that with the St. Louis Blues. So again, I'll say it. Happy We Went Blues Day, everyone. What an achievement 5 years ago that none of us will ever forget. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Email him at Mike@strikewithmike.com today for all of your home buying and selling needs. That's Mike@strikewithmike.com. And by Wolf Power Washing, St. Louis's premier power washing company with the best rates in town. Call Joe Wolf at 314-420-5434 and get the best looking and greatest power washer in the area. That's 314-420-5434. That will do it for episode, am I right, 34? That doesn't seem right, does it? It's 35. Episode 35 of Season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Kirk Price, Bill Day, and producer Austin, I'm Jeff Ponder, and I will talk with you next week. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues. Oilers, Panthers, whoever you're rooting for, sure, they can all go too. And let's go Cardinals.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Cyanosport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available.
A look at fourth.
I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
I want you to have a heart attack and die so that we never have to do this shit again.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to number one. Now there's no more blues for our St. Louis Blues. The Blues are on the ice tonight again. They're rough and tough and got the stuff to win. They'll always get one more, no matter what the score. They are quite a hockey team, my friend.